And we encourage everyone to turn on their cameras, especially our panel members. I'm going to pin you guys so that you will be on the screen and everybody can see you when you are speaking. Is Ivy Love and Benjamin here? No. Okay, I've not seen them in the participants list yet.
Ivy is here.
All right, I would like us to start the meeting. So, hello everyone. My name is Blessed Amoa. I am the GRASAG-USA president. Coupled with that, I'm a student at the University of Oklahoma pursuing a Master of Science in Petroleum Engineering. So today's meeting is the graduate school application process, the tips and the cues. And as many of you may be aware, there are so many information out there about the graduate school process, how to go about it. There are many twists and turns to it. So today's meeting, what we want to present to you is very resourceful information from people who have already gone through the process and knows a lot about how to go about it and be successful. So we want to equip you with that information, and hopefully you can use what we will give you to be successful in your graduate school application. And join us sometime maybe next year, August, to do your master's or your PhD with a possible funding. So enjoy the meeting and hopefully you can take some notes. Esther.
Thank you so much, Blessed. My name is Esther Akutuamwako. I'm a PhD student studying spatially integrated social science at the University of Toledo, Ohio. So I'm going to be the moderator or the chair for this meeting. So we have distinguished panel members here who will help us to shed light on some of the challenges or some of the issues as far as graduate school application is concerned, because in the fall semester, that is the time that most schools open up application process for grad school admissions, and prospective students also make plans to apply for school with the hope of getting admission and possible funding. So it is our hope that our panel members will be able to shed light on some of the things to expect as far as you navigate the application process, and so that this will kind of help you or equip you to position yourself for successful admission and funding. So without much ado, I'll go ahead and introduce our distinguished panel members, who are all PhD students, and we have one who has already graduated and is working as a research scientist. So we are blessed to have this wonderful distinguished panel members. So in no particular order, one of our panelists is Dr. George Afadu Danfor. So he is a vibrational spectroscopy scientist at a chemical company in Pennsylvania. He had his PhD in analytical chemistry from Oklahoma State University, and MS in the same field from Tennessee State University. He also had his BSc in chemistry from the University of Cape Coast. So thank you, Dr. Danfor, for being part of our panel. This person is a statistician, and she is currently studying a PhD in statistics at Western Michigan University. Ms. Sandra's research interest focuses on development of Bayesian methods in the pharmaceutical company. Let's welcome Sandra Tay as a panel member. Our next panel member is Benjamin Amokrantin, who is also a PhD student of energy and systems engineering and a research assistant at the University of Stanford. Benjamin is passionate about solving problems that will contribute real value to society through machine learning and AI. He has over 5 years of experience in business management and development in education and trading industry. Thank you, Benjamin, for being part of our panel members. The next person is also a PhD student of global education and cultures and a graduate teaching assistant at Texas A&M University. She had her master's degree in Hispanic Studies from Western Michigan University and a bachelor's degree from the University of Ghana. Her research includes Latin American literature, language pedagogy, and African studies. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ivilove Kujo. Our next panelist is Godwin Jima, who is a PhD student of curriculum and instructions and graduate teaching assistant in Department of Social Studies Education at Purdue University. His research interest emerges on the nexus of culturally responsive pedagogy, race and racism in schools, social justice education, teaching and learning of History and Social Studies. Thank you, Godwin, for being part of our panelists. The next person is Christabel Ajatete. She is a PhD student of Systems Engineering and Research Assistant at the University of Louisiana's Institute for Materials Research and Innovation at Lafayette. She also serves as the secretary of the Louisiana Green Energy Club. Her research focuses on solid oxide fuel cells and electrolyzers. She had her bachelor's degree in chemical engineering with first-class honors from KNUST. Thank you, Christabel, for being part of our panel members. And last but not the least, we have Edwin Coleman, who is a PhD student of agricultural economics and a research assistant from Oklahoma State University. Edwin received his MSc in agricultural economics from the same university, and he has a BSc in agribusiness management from KNUST. His research focuses on conservation programs and how these programs tend to impact greenhouse gases emission reduction while addressing spatial heterogeneity. So we have diverse panel members from different disciplines, and they are going to help us unpack the topic relating to graduate school application. And we want this webinar to be interactive as much as possible. So I'll pose the questions, and sometimes I'll call specific panel members to give their overview or their perspectives on the question. And then based on their submission, if other panel members want to add up, they are free to do so. So at the end of it, we will have the panel members go through the already set questions, and then afterwards we'll open the floor to take questions from our audience. So our distinguished audience, we are so much grateful that you are part of this meeting, and we want you to jot down your questions. We will have time to take them. So let's get started. So the graduate school application process can be cumbersome sometimes, especially from our part of the world where you have either limited information about the US educational systems, and I mean, where to start from. So I will start with Godwin. I want you to share your views when we talk about the graduate school application process. What comes in mind, and what are some of the things that you want our audience to focus on as far as this topic is concerned?
Yeah, I think as you rightly pointed out, when it comes to issues of graduate school application, is something that is broad, and I hope that we intend giving insightful information, but we might not necessarily complete everything today. And so one thing that I would want to start with has to do with the idea that you need to know what specifically you hope to apply, the kind of program that you look forward in applying to. Because there are instances where for some individuals in Africa and other parts of the world, people are not so certain with the kind of program that they intend to apply. And so some individuals, they are done with their bachelor's degree. They are hoping to apply for a master's degree. Others are even done with their master's degree, either in Africa or maybe outside of Africa. But some of them are not certain, or they are not specific with the specific program that they intend to apply to. We perfectly understand that maybe things are hard in Africa, things are hard in Ghana, or maybe wherever you find yourself to be, and people are wishing to travel. But I've seen individuals who travel to the US. At times they spend like 2 years into a program, and then they'll be like, I don't think this program is for me. Some people even spend like a year or two in a PhD program, and they are like, I don't think this program is the right program for me. And so you need to decide on the kind of program that you look forward in applying to. Is it a program that's related to education? Is it a program that's related to like geography, political science, history? What specific program are you looking forward in applying to? I think that's one of the key things that we always need to take into consideration. And the one thing that I'll also add up had to do with the school selection. Maybe afterwards, maybe I believe others will also add more. The school selection. So we have various schools and their rankings and like their levels. And so if I'm looking out for a particular school, maybe I'm searching for a school that specializes in education or biological sciences. What are the schools that I can focus on? What are the school categories that I can focus on? That's also an important thing that I also need to look out for. Because some schools, if I'm coming from, like maybe given the place that you are coming from, you are thinking about Harvard, you are thinking about Stanford. These are great schools, but at times you also need to ask yourself, looking at where I'm coming from, if I'm coming from maybe like a state in the US, a particular school in the US, what are my academic credentials? Does that academic credential that I possess help me to fit well and even place myself well for any competition if I decide to apply for any given school? If I'm coming from Africa, any institution, my CGP, how I've built up my statement of purpose, my resume over the past years, do I place myself well to present myself well for any form of competition that may come after I apply? So I usually advise individuals to maybe begin from the lower rank level of schools. So you begin from the lower rank level of schools. If you are thinking of maybe applying for 3 or 4 or 5 schools, you can try to divide your application, your schools into various sections. Maybe the lower rank level of school, and then you come to the mid, and then you apply for maybe 1 or 2 schools that you deem as part of the top 1 schools. Yeah, so that's what I would say on that for now.
Thank you so much, Godwin. You raised such important point, and we will definitely visit some of the questions that you raised in your submission. So, Sandra, we would like to have your views on the same question.
All right, so I think Godwin mentioned everything that you need to know in like school applications, right? So the process, usually I get people like sending me messages, oh, I want to apply to this school, I want to do this. And I'm talking in terms of like people I know from Ghana, right? And I think the expectation is like to do this within 1 week. The process, to be honest, is very tedious. Like it's a whole process. You have to go from step, like you have to start somewhere before you get somewhere. So it's a whole tedious process, right? But I would say my idea of the whole thing is you would have a plan. If you don't have a plan, it's like whenever you see any school, you just want to apply. So like what Godwin said, like have a plan, know what program you are interested in, and every information you need to know about the program, the whole course description, you can find all that on the internet. So you go to the school's website. So if you are interested in a school, one, you can, so like Godwin said, like you should check the ranking of the schools, right? So you can, I would say do that first. When you check the ranking of the schools and you see that like, okay, I feel like I can fit into this school. The school has a program requirement. So know what, if you don't have a GRE and the school requires you to have a GRE, check if the school like requires you to have that before you apply to a school that requires you to have a GRE and you don't even have a GRE, else you would end up wasting money. Right. So check the school's requirements, the program requirements. You can also like talk to the graduate coordinator or whoever is in charge, and all this information can be found on the school's website. So do your research. And if you have any questions, I think the best people to ask is, you can always find like past students who are from Ghana, and you can email them and ask specific questions. Sometimes it's, I mean, we are also students and we are doing things, but it's a bit tedious when people come asking like questions and you don't know what they are really asking you for. So make sure like you've done your research and you can ask specific questions. If you don't find anyone in the school who like you feel you can connect with, the school always indicates who you can email. So it could be the graduate chair or the graduate coordinator. So you can email whoever is in charge of applications and you talk to the person and you just follow the rest of the process. I mean, this is this is tedious, like I said, and it's a whole process. So I don't think I can say everything, but this is the little input I can give for now. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra. Have a plan. That is what Sandra said. And so for our other panelists, so Godwin and Sandra has given perspective on what the graduate school application looks like. So it's not just a straightforward process that you start today and then tomorrow you are done with your application. So we have some people who wants to, I mean, they have the idea in mind that, yeah, I want to go to grad school, but at what point in time does the individual start the application or decide to go to grad school? Is it immediately after maybe your bachelor's degree or maybe after your master's degree, or do you need to get some work experience before you start the whole process? So I will start with George. Dr. Danforth, can you throw light on this for us? Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Esther. And thank you, GRASAG, for this opportunity to, contribute. And looking at the diversity, I think this event is going to be really great and people will get a chance to learn from different angles. You asked a very important question and there is no specific answer. So when do you know if you want to attend graduate school? I think if you look ahead, right, you might be tempted to apply for graduate school with the goal of just leaving Ghana and then getting out. We all know what is going on. I don't want to get into that. And that is a reason why sometimes people apply to graduate school, but there is life after graduate school. So the fundamental question that you need to ask yourself is, like, why do you want to go to graduate school? Do you want to go to graduate school because all your friends have left? Do you want to go to graduate school because you want to leave Ghana and become a blogger? Or do you want to go to graduate school because after school, you really want to build your career and become someone who can actually contribute? If your answer is yes, and you want to go to graduate school, then the next thing you need to look at is, what are you interested in graduate school? That will depend whether you have to, get some experience before you go or whatever. If your goal is just to further your studies, advance your career, I would say, why waste time? What experience are you looking for? Unless you know that whatever you are about to pursue outside is directly in line with whatever you are studying back home, then I would say get some experience. Let's say you want to pursue a computer science program, programming and stuff. If your fundamentals are really weak, it might cause some problems when you actually start graduate school. So with that, it makes sense for you to get some experience. But if you are in chemistry and you are going to graduate school, it's very likely you're going to do a different research altogether. So what experience are you trying to get? The instruments that you'll be exposed to in your lab is totally different to the instruments that you'll be exposed in whatever lab that you are going to join. So in that aspect, getting experience, it's not really helpful. So you sort of have to weigh where you want to go, and that will tell whether you need experience. And even with the experience, it's even questionable because your experience might not necessarily meet the standard that is required in the school that you're going. So why don't you take the step, apply, start? You might have to do some extra work to catch up if you are lacking, but that way you are very sure that you are on the right track, you are doing what you're supposed to do. So to summarize it in terms of the experience, look at what you want to do in the graduate school. And is the experience that you want to get back home, is it relevant to the next step that you want to take? If it's relevant, yes. If it's not, forget about it, apply. And like Sandra said, the application process is not something you can do in a week. So even as you wait, you can use that time to gain whatever experience that you're looking for. So don't wait, don't spend so much time. If you are interested, take the step and then move on. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Christabel, can you give a perspective on the same question?
Yeah, so I would also like to thank GRASAG for this opportunity. And I agree with George too. So I would say that it would depend on the individual. it comes down to the individual preferences. You see, both of them might have their pros and the cons. So someone who is going right after undergrad, we can say, oh, the mind is fresh. So like coming back to study again, coming back to exams again, it might be kind of easier, you get it. And someone with an experience to, let's say, will come back and then, let's say what you are studying or the research you are doing is kind of similar to the sort of experience that you have. Things may kind of seem easier for you, easier to you from the beginning, you get it. But anyways, someone who doesn't have the experience to can catch up with time. So you get it. So we wouldn't say that, oh, you need to get that experience before you start grad school. So let's not say grad school, it's not time bound, let me say, like you get it. So it will come down to you, it will come down to your goals, career, what do you want to see in the future? Yeah, so I'll say that's what I can add.
Thank you, Christabel, so much for that insight. So let's assume that, yes.
Yes, if any of the panel members have a contribution to add to a particular topic, you can go ahead, unmute yourself and speak.
Okay. Yeah, and speak, yes. Yeah.
All right, so hello guys, nice to meet you. I'm Benjamin, and I think some of you were not here when she was introducing us because we're about 47 when starting. But yeah, it's great I'm very opportunity to be here to speak to you about my experiences and what I've been through so far. And I thank GRASAG for this opportunity. Speaking to the question on how do you know when to attend grad school? So particularly for my experience, and I think it might be similar to a couple of years, there is no timeline. But more importantly, every school tries to admit students that, for instance, when I was in Stanford, as a student in Stanford, my class was full of people who were from 20 years to 40 years. There was no timeline. Some people had stayed out of school and worked for like 10, 15 years, and they had hit a ceiling that they want a better or much more technical experience, for which reason they came. Do you get it? And that speaks to very much to whether you want to do a master's or even a straight PhD in the first place. So, for instance, someone wants to be in the industry, not necessarily go into research, but would want to gain much more technical experience. But you think you love the work you are doing in Ghana, maybe you just want to gain more experience. There is nothing wrong in that. It has a big advantage. And your big advantage is that if you come to the US to do a master's degree, it will speak a lot for you when you are doing your job interviews here. It's going to really help you because they would want to know, okay, so what work have you done before? Tell us about how you overcame this challenge, this technical challenge. I'm not talking about personal challenges, technical challenge. They would want to hear about these things. Do you get it? When you are going for job interviews. So there is not one specific rule of thumb. It depends. But if you don't want to stay in academia and you love the work you're doing in Ghana, you would want to gain some level of experience before coming here. If you really, really want to come out here, which I know is the case generally, as I don't remember your name, but the doctor said, it's very, very important that you think of life after school because time goes here very fast. 2 years in school goes very fast. So you'd want to be thinking more long-term, getting a job or doing a PhD or something of that sort. So yeah, that's what I have to add with respect to that.
Thank you, Benjamin. Anyone from our panel to add to the question? Okay.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so I want to touch on what Sandra said earlier on. She did mention about the process of getting tedious. Anyway, I'm Edwin, and yeah, I'm also in Oklahoma State University. All right, so she did mention about the process getting tedious, and then sometimes it gets tedious as well. And you really want to mess up this opportunity, all right? So it all boils down to you trying to sell yourself and then creating first impression. To mention about you talking to professors, through email, which is very important thing to take note of. So I happened to get in contact with my graduate coordinator at my department. And then it happens that some people contact him and then they have good grades in terms of GRE and all that. But they tend to, if you look at the kind of English they construct, so he tends to have some doubts. You do like, Edwin, do you think this person is quite good? This person has nearly perfect score in the GRE, and then here comes, he write this email with a lot of errors. So it's something that we have to take note of. If you are trying to contact a professor for the very first time, you really have to make sure that the English you're constructing is very good. And then we should try and be polite enough. Even the word please, you're not trying to be subservient or trying to humble yourself or something like that. But in case it demands that you at least use please, and then it goes a long way to give you upper hand it gives you an upper hand than others. For instance, one thing that he also told me is someone who actually had admission in our group because of his choice of words, So that's one of the reasons why they actually gave him admission. He uses please and then constructs his sentences very well, and that actually gave him admission funding. So this is something I'll also like to touch on. And then you have to also look at admission requirements for the program or in a particular department, because you wouldn't want to send an email to a professor asking a question that has already been addressed in the admission requirements on the website. So it's kind of tells him that you don't read, it creates an impression about you. So first impression through email actually counts, and it's very important. So this is what I'd like to add to it. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Edwin. So Ivy, I want you to highlight the steps to start the whole application process. So how do you have to maybe contact a professor in that school you are interested in before you submit your application? Where do you start from the whole application process?
Oh, this is a very dense question. It's kind of a different experience for everybody. And well, before I say anything, in my experience, it was pretty cool. Unlike the usual, I was able to finish my application in 2 days. So I'm sorry. I am like the exception to the norm. But then I think I would say the first step would be to ask yourself if you want to even do graduate school. If you want to do graduate school, then the next thing will be research. You can't say you're going to graduate school without knowing where you're going to. Like whatever everybody has said so far, it all goes into it. So it kind of boils down to your experience, where you are at, and which one is going to come first. But I would say do your research, find out the program. It's very, very important, as Godwin was telling us. If you don't know what program you're going to do, you can apply to too many schools. That's also so much money going. Like, you have to be wise in the process, So you have to find out what program you want to do in the first place. It narrows your search down, because once you put it into Google, Google give you an answer. Like, put wrong spelling inside, Google will still find a school for you. So you have to know what program you want, and then narrow your search down, okay? And know the level where you are at. Once you find the schools that kind of have the programs that you want to go to, then, like Sandra was telling us, please visit the websites of those schools. Visit the websites. Dr. Danfo was telling us, you have to know the information on the websites, what are the requirements from there, right? So you have to know, it's a step-by-step process. Find the program you want to do, narrow it down on Google, search for the schools that are kind of involved in this program, go to the schools' websites, read about the program from the individual departments, read the requirements, read the funding that is available, read stuff on faculty, okay? That is also important. If you are very much into research, look at the faculty and see what kind of research faculty is involved in those schools. Does it align with where you want to go, okay? Because every school can put, let's say, for example, IT. That's okay, we have this course IT, but they're not always going to treat the same content within IT. So which one do you want that is kind of talking about what you want to further in your education? So you have to be very particular about that. And then after that, once you know your requirements, it narrows it down, find out about application fee. Is this something you can afford? Is it something you cannot afford? All those come into question. Find out about application fee, look at deadlines. Which deadline is actually talking about Like if you submit it before this date, you are open to funding. If you submit it after this date, then you're not open to funding. You have to take note of deadlines. And then you actually sit down and assess how you can meet those requirements. If you need to write a GRE, if you have to produce a GMAT, I don't know, well, Ghana, we don't have to, I guess I might not be wrong. Ghana doesn't have to provide TOEFL, right? So yeah, fortunately, that is not a requirement for us, thankfully. So like you have to know all these things and then set time in your, well, I can't say in your countries, where you are, find out if you have to write a GRE, find out when the exams are being taken place. Like, so that's why Sandra, it's a whole process. You can't just do this in 1 month. If you have to write GRE, you have to now go and apply. They have specific times in Ghana where when they take those exams. You have to make sure that you meet those deadlines to be able to meet your deadline for application. So I would say if you want to start a process in the first place, give yourself a whole year to prepare, because research takes a while. Give yourself a whole year, take your time, look through things, make your decision, make your notes, like put all those things together and then start the step-by-step process, because you definitely can't you definitely can't write an SOP for your course without knowing what the school is even looking within your SOP. Like schools differ from what they require for your statement of purpose. Sorry, that's the SOP. So you can't just pull one down and say like, okay, this one is going to fit all. No. So it depends on the school and the requirements and then the course. So it's very, very specific and they differ. There's no blankets for every American university here. Everybody in this panel can tell you, you can move from one department to another and the requirements might change. My department might not require GRE, another department might require GRE, and it's within the same school. So like the diversity is too broad. So you really have to narrow it down, be specific about the course and its requirements. I think that's what I can say about that.
Thank you, Ivy. Godwin, is there anything more you can add to Ivy?
Yeah, I think Ivy has said a lot. One thing I also want to add has to do with the fact that at times you also need to ask yourself, looking at the program and also the department and the school, is there the need for me to contact a professor? I know that in most institutions, and especially for the master's program, that may not necessarily be a requirement. But when I was applying for my master's program and even my PhD program, a couple of individuals advised me that notwithstanding, it is always important to maybe try to go to the school's website, search for professors or individuals that you think their research work or their lab works fell into the category that you're also interested in. Send them an email, let them know that you're interested in applying into their program. You've gone through their research works and you think that like their research works connect with what your interest is. So you thought of reaching out to them for any recommendations or suggestions that they can offer to you. And by doing so, there are instances where you can even go ahead and add that to your statement of purpose that, oh, I've contacted Professor Esther Amwakun, whom I believe could be a great mentorship for my scholarship in Toledo, University of Toledo. That becomes an awesome one, because when the committee sits or the department sits and they are reviewing documents, at times they also think about who can be assigned to you as an advisor. And so once you indicate the person's name that, oh, I got the opportunity to contact this individual and the person I believe could be a great mentor, it makes their work pretty easy that, okay, is there a way that we can easily reach out to this individual to find out if the person is willing to be your advisor or your mentor? Because PhD, for instance, most instances, they think about who can be your advisor. And even in some master's programs too, they do also as well check that. But in doing so, one thing that I've noticed about most of our Ghanaian brothers and sisters is that some of us, at times, we end up asking questions that are already stipulated on the school's website. And that's not right. So you don't send an email to a professor, to a graduate coordinator and others, asking a question that if you had taken your time and gone to the website to read, you would have found those questions on there. I don't want to say maybe we are lazy or maybe we don't want to spend our time on that, but at times it becomes something else. If you keep asking graduate coordinators and like professors questions that are already stipulated on a website, at times they begin to question your credential and also your identity. That an individual who is interested in our master's program or our PhD program And these are questions that you are asking, questions that are already captured on the school's website. At times, some of the questions you ask and they will even direct you that, hey, these are stuff that are already stipulated on our website. Why don't you go ahead and then go over there to check on it? Yeah, and then lastly, as Ivy said, when it comes to application, you need to start at an early stage. For each school, they have their priority deadline and then the normal deadline. As individuals who are looking out for graduate assistantship, fellowship, and then others, we are hoping that at the end of the day, we will get the opportunity to get the fellowship or the assistantship. And so in doing so, you always have to meet that priority deadline in order to be considered for financial consideration. And so if you are starting your application, at times you even have to send an email, start your search, like maybe sometime from January. If you are planning to send an email to a professor, maybe by the month of May, June, you should have sent out the email. I'm not saying that if you have not yet done that, you can still do that. You can still go ahead and then do so even as of now if you have not yet done that. But it's always important for you to be ahead. So that some of them, if they are deciding that, oh, I have this funding, I have this research funding, I'm looking for an individual to work with. By the time you send out an email, you'll be the first person that the individual will come in mind. And at times, even our school selection, you might decide on maybe 3 schools that you would like to apply. But after sending an email to the graduate coordinator to ask about funding and then the admission rate and others, you realize that maybe they are, for this year, they may not be having funding for you. And so by so doing, you might have to search for other alternatives, other schools that you think you can also bring on board as part of the sample schools that you look forward in applying to. So that's what I'll add to the data information that Ivy shared.
Okay. Now, yeah. Esther, can I add something?
Yes.
Yeah, so messaging professors is very, very key when it comes to graduate application, because I realized that they have most of the funding, like more than what we get from the department in terms of like teaching, the number of teaching assistantship positions you can get. So even before you start your application, you can send in an email to a professor. And if you've not done that to any points that you, I think Gordon mentioned it, do well to message, at least try and cover most of the people that you can see in the department. Yeah. And then one challenge that we get is sometimes we message them and then we are not getting any reply. You get it. Yeah. So this is one thing that I can say, target their office hours. Almost each and every professor has some time that is set aside to meet students. So target that time, send that email, and also try and check the email that you're sending. It's good to always get someone to proofread. Check the tone of your email. Am I getting it right? I think the other time my professor messaged me. Apparently there was a student that had reached out to him, but you can see that he had written a lot. So like he knows what he's about, but we can't understand the title. So the title is just like changing everything. You get it. Yeah. So be careful of how you structure your message. Be concise, like sell yourself out. Let him know that you know what you are about. You get it. You can try and go through his research interests. Let him know how his interests like coincide with yours, and then also like check the English. The office hours is also very important. And if you email and you're not reached, like you're not getting them, call. You can get their numbers. Call. Let them see how serious you are. You're calling from like somewhere that is like outside the US. You get it, just to show that you are serious about what you are. Yeah. So I think that is what I can add to it. Thank you.
Can I add something with
Yeah, but George, once you add something to it, I was going to come to you and ask you to, highlight some of the things that individuals should include in their emails to a professor, like what should be the content of the email, because it looks like people are getting it wrong where they don't even know how to communicate or when they reach out to professors. So address that also in your submission. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. And the panelists have like raised very, very important things that we mostly overlook. Something like how you construct your sentences. If you get here, the first thing you will notice is like this accent thing. You'll be speaking to someone, they're like, hey, you have an accent. They don't even hear what you're saying. So when you are sending out an email, the key thing that you need to do is, these professors, and I'm sure you all know, they don't have time. They get a lot of emails. So no professor is willing to spend 20 minutes on your email trying to understand what you are saying. It won't happen. So your email should be brief, straight to the point, address specific issues, and then even your title should be very important. You know, like when you're writing the email, they just say title. Don't just write graduate school, because when he opens his email in the morning, he decides which one to read based on the title. So if I see graduate school, he's a professor, he doesn't need graduate school for anything. Like, what do you mean by graduate school? So you can say prospective applicant, something that can get his attention and then get him to open the email. Now, another practical thing that you can use is, we all have smartphones, we all have Facebook and stuff. When you construct an email, there are softwares that can help you fix your grammar. There is no shame in it. Just go to Google, type word rephrase softwares. You get a lot of them for free. All you have to do is copy your drafted email, paste it in the word rephrase, and then the system will rephrase your email for you. Now, when he rephrases it, don't copy and paste it and send it. No, it's a software, it makes mistake. So just read it again, make some few changes, and then send it out. By doing that, your grammar will be okay. You will communicate very efficiently, because sometimes it will just break down your email to like 3 sentences. And then once you have that, you can send it out. Now, getting to know what you have to include in your email. Think of yourself as a professor. One of us mentioned that these professors have funding, and it's true. Like, their research is not for fun. They are doing science or whatever to solve problems. And the government, NIJ, whatever, they have given them great funding to solve these problems. So if you are coming on board, think of yourself as a solution. So ask yourself that, if I have this money and I'm trying to hire someone, right? Let's say I have to choose Esther, between Esther and Blessed. I'm using them because I know they won't be mad. So I get one email from someone saying that, hi, my name is Esther. I graduated from blah, blah, blah. At this, I was the PENSA president, blah, blah, blah. I have this, I have that, I have that. Then at the bottom of your email, you ask him, are you accepting students? And then you send it. This is a scenario. Then I read Blessed email. Hi, my name is Blessed Amwa. I recently graduated from Legon with a first class in chemistry. During my course of study, I've gained experience in organic synthesis, how to use UV-Vis, how to characterize spectra, and I'm willing to build on my experience. And looking at your research, you employ some of these techniques in this. I believe that with a few studies, I might build up my expertise and contribute greatly in achieving this goal. Which of these 2 people will you hire? It's pretty obvious, right? But that is what they see all the time. So when you are sending out an email, it goes back to what the panelists who said about information. Information is everything. And another practical advice that I'll give to you is that make yourself a spreadsheet, okay? And then give various headings: school name, requirements, deadline, application fee, graduate coordinator email, prospective professor's email. Because when you start this job, I mean, I said job because it sounds like a job. It's a lot of work. And so your goal is to be efficient, right? Minimize your time that you waste. So if you spend 2 hours behind the computer, at the end of the day, you should ask yourself, what did you achieve? And the only way you can keep track of what you are doing is keeping records. So if you go to Stanford, if you go to Purdue's website, take note of the application deadline. What are the requirements? And when are the requirements due? When are you supposed to submit the application? And have all those things in a spreadsheet, and then make a column for the application fee. So let's say in a week, you can sit down and review this sheet that you have generated, and then weigh yourself. because you can't go to a school with an acceptance rate of 0.3% and you know your credentials are very bad. You will not be accepted. The system is merit-based. So you don't waste your time. Look for a school that matches your strength. And maybe you can throw in one and hope that things will work out for you. So the key is efficiency. Keep track of whatever you are doing. And then when it comes to the email, like someone mentioned that you ask obvious questions that are on the website, it makes you look really incompetent, if I can use that word. But if you have this thing that I've talked about, if a column is missing, right? Let's say you have a column for the graduate requirements, and then you go and that column is blank, you can auto-correct it, you can fix it yourself. You look for it and then you put in there. So when you are sending out the email, you know exactly what you want and exactly what you want to contact. So for the email, first, pay attention to your title, and then even your email address itself. Don't have an email address that says fancy shoes at gmail.com. Like, what is fancy shoes at gmail.com? Create another one with your name, georgedanfo@gmail.com, esther@this.com. So the person knows that it's coming from a person. So if I see fancy shoes applying for graduate school, it sounds like a spam. So I won't even open it. So check your email address, check the title, and then when it comes to the content, go straight to the point. Mention your name, what you are bringing on board, what the professor has, and how you are going to contribute and improve on yourself. And you can only get this information when you read and, you know, find out what is in the fine print. Thank you.
Thank you. Edwin.
All right.
Yeah. So
yeah, so whilst you comment on the same topic, I want you to also respond to how do you deal with no response from the prospective professors. Maybe you have your email right and everything, but you don't hear back from the professors. What do you do in that situation?
I think it's even least what I want to talk about. So mind you, there are some universities or departments that do not require you to actually contact a professor. They strictly demand that don't contact any professor. You know, so in that case, then one, it means that this professor might not reply you when you send out an email. So then what do you do to, you know, gain admission or funding? So in your SOP, again, you have to sell yourself. So you don't have to restrict yourself to just one person, that this person shares the same research interest with you, and then you want to work with this person. You like to spread your tentacles, like you have to smart around what you are trying to see with regards to the research interest. So this, let's say marketing, and another person also, another researcher has interest in consumer behavior. You see, so they all revolve around the same thing. So you have to be smart around you stating your research interest. So Professor Blessed or Dr. Edwin, Dr. Christabel shares the same research interest as me because this person works in this area. So you can combine like 3 or 4 professors. So in the case where the funding is coming from the department and they realize that, okay, your research interest does not meet the requirements of this person, they move you to this person and then the other person. Okay, so this is something we have to do. Then again, trying to sell yourself, recommendation comes in. You know, there's been instances that we try to get recommendation from our professors, you know, in our previous university. So what we have to know is that we have normal recommendation that everyone receives. Imagine I have no relationship with my, a lecturer in K University, and I'm like, okay, Dr. So please, can I get a recommendation from you because I'm applying to this particular university? So this professor has no relationship with you. So what do you expect the professor to write about you? So you have to have some kind of relationship with the professor, because when they're writing recommendations for you, they are trying to, they believe that, this is why people believe that whatever the professor says, they hold on to that word. They have some kind of integrity, so they hold on to the word. So if he says that you are among the top 5% in your year group, they hold on to that word and they give you admission based on that. So you need to have some kind of relationship with your professors in your previous, like in your former university. So they also have to write something good about you. For instance, like George was giving an example. If someone says, a professor says, I taught him, and then he was good. And, it's different from someone say that he was part of the top 1% in his class or in his year group. And then I worked with him in person on this project, and then he's good. So they kind of weigh that one much more than the previous recommendation. So this is something we also have to know. To try and develop some good relationship with our professors back home, and also try to get good recommendation. Okay, so this is something we have to take note of. And also our CV, we have to sell ourselves. We don't have much experience, so we have to try and set ourselves in our CV as well. Even if it's something like, let's say, you were a TA, you can write something good, during the TA, you had a vacation trip, something that will sell you, out there. So this is something I would like you to take note of. And then they're not replying to your emails is because maybe you did something wrong, or this professor have not seen it, or he decided to reply to it, he forgot about it. You have to send the email like twice, 3 times, or like Chris had also said, you can call, try and get their contact and call them, get their attention. So I think this is what I would like to add to it.
All right. Yeah. That is a whole lot of. Let me chime in for a minute, right? Because I really feel like I have so much to share. So before my experience going to Stanford, I helped more than 250 people school abroad. So I have like a whole lot of experience with respect to this. And I have so much that I cannot share right now, but I'm going to share the most important things and address the most important questions. First of all, the first thing I wanted to talk about is people don't really know the kind of programs they want to enter into. It's quite very normal that because you're in Ghana, you don't really know the very recent research or development of the state of arts here going on. How do you break that barrier to get to know before, in advance of time, that this particular course is about this, it's about that, it's about that? Now, it's very good that you email or contact a student over there. Most of the students will be much more willing to talk to you. You don't even want to talk to a professor to know what they are doing there. No, that's like a big shame to you, because you should have done your work before that. So contact a student, ask them what is going on in the department. What is, for instance, civil engineering. I did civil engineering at Stanford. Civil engineering at Stanford is so different from civil engineering at Vanderbilt. Why? Because when it comes to Stanford, most of our focus is into like computer science, machine learning, how we can use machine learning to transform the civil engineering industry. When you go to Vanderbilt, your focus in civil engineering is going to be construction management. That is totally different, right? But maybe you might not know, because it's like a whole overwhelming number of constraints that you have to look at. So you want to contact someone, know what is going on in the department, how they teach, what they teach. That will let you know whether it aligns to what you want in your long, medium, and short-term goals. That is one of them. Now, let's come to the part that we are talking about, handling information. How do you contact professors and all of that? It's normal that you don't get any reply from a professor, or you might get very limited reply. That is normal. They are very busy. They have said a whole lot of things. I'm not going to touch on any one of them. Great points. One thing that is very important, for instance, in Stanford, you almost always never get a reply from a professor if you want to go to like one of these very top schools. But what you can do is this, which I see it works a lot. You can look at the PhD students, mostly from third year to those who are about graduating, and postdocs that works with the professor. These people are more likely to reply you. So look at their profile, send them an email. They are more likely to reply you than the professor himself, because sometimes some professors have very large research groups, like 30 people. They don't have time. Even the students they are teaching, they don't have time for them. So email some of the PhD students that are like third year, fourth year, who have built like very good relationship with the professor, who the professors trust. Now, when you meet them, what are you going to talk to them about? Or when you email them, what are you going to email them about? You want to show them that, first of all, you have some background or background development. So you've done this, you've done this, you've done this. This is my background. This is what I've done. And I've seen that in your research lab, you do this. And this is what I can contribute. Do you have so this is very important. They want to know how much time you want to take. and you want to give them some time slots. So do you have about 30 minutes of your time on maybe Monday, 3 p.m. or Wednesday, 12 p.m. to talk with me? But if any of these timelines don't work for you, I'm very much open and flexible to scheduling a time with you. So you have to give timelines, maybe 30 minutes of your time within this time frame, so that they will also check their schedules, because here everyone is very busy. You would want to do that. So now, the next thing that you want to look at is professors or faculty talk amongst themselves a lot. So someone is contacting some professors in a department. He will use only one particular email and write to all the professors. They talk, they will know. And when they know that you are not serious. And most likely, they won't take you seriously too. So even if you are writing to different professors in the same department, you want to tailor it very much to their research interest and how it aligns with your background. You don't want to do like a copy paste to all the other professors. I hope you get it. So these are very, very important. With the recommendation, it depends if you're applying for a master's or a PhD. So mostly you are given about 3 recommendations. If you're applying for a PhD, it's very important your recommendations are mostly academic-based recommendations. More importantly, get a professor that can speak to your research ability. Very important. Don't just go and look, you're applying for a PhD, but you go and look for recommendations from your supervisor at work and all of that. It's good, but they want someone who can do research. That's why you are coming there. I hope you get it. So you want a recommender that can speak to your research ability, preferably someone you have done research with before in your undergrad, or you did an internship at a research faculty, and then you did that. So there's a lot. I can say a lot when it comes to CV and recommendation, which I have a document that I would like to share with you, about 40 pages about all these things, which I think will help you. So that will come to you at the end of this program.
Yeah, thank you so much, Benjamin.
Sorry for
I was coming to you, Sandra.
Okay.
So Sandra,
can I say something? Sorry,
yeah,
I just don't want to forget because I've been holding it back.
The floor. I'm going to give you the floor, but I want you to also address this since we have limited time, so that you can touch on this topic as well. So I think Benjamin did highlight the fact that students send the same email to every faculty member within the department. So I want you to address that in your submission as well. And also highlight how do you position yourself to get funding, because of some schools, almost every school will give you admission, but you need funding to pursue. So highlight that as well. Thank you.
All right. So I just wanted to first touch on like the topic of emailing professors, right? So this can be a bit tricky. Yeah, it's good to email professors and all, but also when you're emailing them, asking about like their research area, or even saying, okay, I'm interested in what you do and all that. If it's a master's program, I know some master's program based on the field. So some statistics master's program is just, they don't have like research, it's just coursework. So if you are emailing a professor talking about like a research interest and all that, like you show that you've not even read about like, or you've not gone to their program, their website to check the what the program require, right? So be sure you can email a professor about like a research. If your program is just coursework, you don't have to email professors about their research area. And also, I think like it was mentioned that you can call them. Some professors are really busy. Emailing them alone can even be like, if you keep emailing them over and over, you can be bugging them, right? So imagine like calling a professor. That can be a lot sometimes. Moreover, we are coming from, from different countries. We have an accent, right? So calling them, even talking to them in person, sometimes they don't understand what you're saying. Calling them, there's like a whole telecommunication and network issue. Like sometimes they do not understand you. So if you want to have like a voice call, or like you want to talk to them, I think you should first ask them, can we maybe have a virtual meeting on Zoom or something, rather than like taking their numbers and call? I mean, that's my opinion, than calling them, right? So that can be a bit tricky. And also cultural differences. Sometimes like it seems to them as if you are bugging them if like you just take their, I don't know where you find their private numbers, but you just take their numbers and call them. Usually some schools have like on their websites, they'll tell you who to contact when you have questions, right? So that's what you should check for. I mean, some schools are okay with you emailing professors based on your program. So yeah, you can email professors and talk about your research and all that, but that should be based on your program. If your program doesn't require that, I am in statistics. I didn't have to do that, right? So if you're in a program that doesn't require you, like even if the assistantship or what they do is not research based, mine is. So my assistantship, I teach a class, right? So I don't need like a sponsor, like a professor to sponsor me. Like the graduates, my department is the one sponsoring me. So it wouldn't, I mean, I don't want to say make sense to like email a professor saying that I want you to, because they don't have funding. That's not how it works in my department. Okay. So that's the whole thing about email I wanted to talk about. Esther, I'm sorry, can you remind me of what you wanted me to talk about?
I want you to highlight how do you position yourself to get funding, because you don't just want to get admission, but you also want funding.
Okay, so I think someone made mention of so when you're applying to a school, right? Sometimes they tell you we have deadline for like people who want funding, and there are other late like deadlines. So you should check like the school's requirements, the graduate school's requirements, the department's requirements. If there is a deadline, if you have a deadline, if you need, let's say you need assistantship or funding, and there is a deadline for it, just make sure you meet that deadline. And also if you want, sometimes you would have to do a separate application for funding for some schools, right? So you always have to check the school's website and what they require you to do. And sometimes you have to state in your SOP. Some schools already give funding like for master's or PhD students. They don't have like the option of no funding, right? So if you check the school's website and they require you to send them, like do a separate application, just make sure you meet the application deadline. If they don't have that option, sometimes you would need to mention it in your SOP, like at the end of your SOP, that like you would want to be considered for funding. So, I mean, that's the little I know about, because all the funding, I mean, speaking for myself, my funding has always come from the department or the grad school. So I don't know much about like other funding opportunities. Yeah.
All right, so thank you so much, panelists. Godwin wanted to highlight something about the content of your emails, and then as far as recommendation letters are concerned. So.
Yeah, I think on the recommendation, one suggestion or recommendation that I want to talk about how to do with know the individual that you ask a recommendation letter from. And so I had a friend from Eastern Illinois. He applied for PhD program. That guy graduated with 4.0 CGPA, went for a lot of conferences, published a lot of papers and a whole lot. And so he applied for a couple of programs, and then at the end of the day, he didn't get admission, yet alone to even get funding. And so later on, he decided to write to one of the professors in the school that he would want to know why he was not given even admission. And then the professor explained to him that this was the situation, but he wouldn't want the case to be escalated. So he said one of the individuals that he submitted as part of the recommenders, the person wrote bad things about him, kind of some things that he was doing at Illinois, that he did this, goes around smoking, doing this as a graduate assistant. He doesn't even come to the office early. He doesn't do this, a whole lot. And so the professor said, as a member of the committee, that was what they based their judgment on, despite his publications, conferences, CGP, and everything. And so know who you ask a recommendation letter from. Because there are some individuals that you may think that, oh, this is a person in my department. This is a person who is in my school. So I intend requesting a recommendation letter from. Usually, because most of them requires a confidential recommendation letter. You wouldn't know the content that a person sent to the school. And some of them you may be thinking that, oh, this is an individual in our department or in our school. But if you don't really know the person, at times some of them can write some bad things about you. And so if possible, it is always recommended that you get an individual that maybe you get the opportunity to work with during your bachelor's, your master's, or any other level. And then even an individual that you get the opportunity to work with, you also need to ask yourself, what was our relationship? Because at times you may be working with someone, but the relationship might not be that positive. And so if you ask that individual for a recommendation letter, at times it might be worse. And then talking about the issue of emailing professors, I've had the opportunity to chat with a couple of professors in the US, and they keep saying that there are a lot of people who send statement of purpose and others that is full of plagiarism. People copy things from online, people write statement of purpose, and at times the level of plagiarism is worse. It's worse. People pick quotes, plagiarize stuff for diversity statement of purpose. And so whenever you are writing, like even your email, if you copy something from online for your email, please revise, reword, and make sure that you avoid all forms of plagiarism. If you are writing a research proposal, a research statement of purpose, and others, do well to avoid all forms of plagiarism. Even if the professor does not open it and turn it in, most of these the professors in general, they read a lot. And so if you copy something from online, you add it to your statement of purpose or research statement or something, at the end of the day, these are some styles that they can easily find online, or they can even detect that this statement or this paragraph is coming from this side. So let's try our best to avoid all forms of plagiarism. And then Benjamin was also talking about the issue of contacting multiple or different professors at the same time. In my position and then where I'm coming from, Purdue University, I've had the opportunity to contact a couple of people. And in Illinois, I was also a member of the International Education Council. And one of the things that a couple of professors spoke about had to do with the fact that there are instances where prospective students, they send emails to about 3 or 4 professors at the same time, asking the same question. Oh, dear Professor Blessed Amo, I'm interested in this program. Like, I would like to find out about this, and that. I think that you are going to be a great mentor for me. About 4 professors within the same day or maybe within the same week. In an instance, maybe you are not getting a feedback from a particular professor. You can go ahead and then send an email to another professor after trying maybe 1, 2, then maybe 3 times, and there's still no feedback. But if you decide to send like emails to 4 or 3 different professors, or even 2 at the same time or the same day with the same caption, or even trying to just tweak just 1 or 2 of your questions, I don't think that's recommendable. Yeah.
All right, Benjamin.
All right.
Last 2 minutes submission.
Sure. Speaking more to the recommendation, right? There are a number of things that has been spoken about, but I want to highlight on these things. I first spoke about someone who can speak to your research ability. Secondly, the second thing you want to consider is that if the person is not speaking to your research ability, but how well you do in class, the person should know you outside of class. The person should know how much you can go beyond just sitting in class and being a good student in class. So that's someone that you want to get a recommendation from, someone who can speak to your ability outside of class, not your personal character. That is not something they really, really want to focus on, but they want to really focus on something that makes you go above and beyond just the classroom, coming to class, going out of class. They want someone who can initiate conversations with professors, because as a PhD student, you have to come to your professor, tell your professor the progress of your work, plan the next stage of your research. They want someone who can initiate such academic conversation, foster conversations, and plan things ahead of time. The next thing that you would want to also consider is a professor that can speak to some statistics about your academic profile. So for instance, a professor that can say that you are the best in maybe the past 5 years that I've been teaching, you are the best research student that I've worked with for the past maybe 2 years that I've been doing research. Someone that can bring some form of statistics. Whites love math and statistics. Like, these are very elite people. They love statistics. So when people are able to speak to these things, they really love it. The last thing that you want to do, which is the fourth thing, is that you would want to send your resume and then sometimes your statement of purpose to your recommenders to help them at least shape how they would want to write your recommendations. Sometimes you ask for a recommendation from a recommender and they don't even know exactly what to write. So you want to help them. So for me, for instance, when I was applying to Stanford, I sent them my CV, I sent them something really brief about me that they can touch on. They can decide to use it or not. You can't force them, but at least help them write something good about you. So don't just ask for a recommendation. What are they going to write? So they will do something. Imagine applying to the same school with another classmate of yours and having the same recommendation as that classmate. For instance, me and Blessed Charles, we went to the same university and we asked for a recommendation from the same professor. He doesn't know as much, so he submits the same kind of recommendation for the both of us, and they read. That is like that's the dead end for both of us, because how can we have the same recommendation? It's not possible. So you want to stand out. So send your CV, possibly your statement of purpose, or something really brief about yourself that you want the professor to highlight or touch on. Then you can be sure that your recommendations will be a bit different from normal. So use these 4 steps when it comes to the recommendations, and it will really help you.
Thank you so much, our panelists. Time is running out as the conversation gets interesting. So at this juncture, I would like to take the questions we have from our audience, and I'll just read out those questions, and then whoever, any of the panel members can start giving perspective on it. So, okay.
Please, can I ask the first question?
Okay.
It's related to what Benjamin said.
Okay.
So my question is that, what do you do when you have some lecturers or professors ask you to write the recommendation letter? And how do you position yourself when you have, let's say, I did petroleum engineering in school, but for my national service, which was a 1-year experience, as you know, and the time I had the most experience, but I was sent to an elementary school to teach. How do I position myself on my resume to look good for admission with possible funding?
All right, great. That's a very good question. Thank you very much for the question. And first of all, it's like the best opportunity you will get if a professor tells you that, hey, write something for me to write your recommendation for you. Most professors will not ask you that. So first of all, if a professor asks you that, thank God for that. Now, in case you did a national service, that is not related to maybe your goals, your academic goals. There is still a whole wealth of experience you got outside of, for instance, teaching that might be related to petroleum engineering. For instance, in your teaching job, maybe you work as a teacher for some high school, right? And it will definitely bring out some form of leadership skill. I wish I could share this link with you, but it's from MIT professors about how they want your recommendations to be. I was reading it before this presentation, and one of the professors was really highlighting on someone who has an initiative and leadership skill. So this is something that, if, for instance, you were a teacher at SS, it didn't have any relation to do with petroleum engineering that you want to do a master's in, or you did an undergrad in. But professors want to see a PhD student that can take initiative, dive into research, start working. They don't need to be pushing them anytime, because it depends on how the professor is. But most professors don't want to be pushing you every time. They want you to be independent. So these are some of the things you can talk about: your leadership skill, your initiative skill, some of the things you did that really caused a change. Because for most professors, they want people that can really contribute to a change in their lab. And it shows forth by the work you've done so far. Okay. So you want to highlight on these also to help you. Do you get it?
So in essence, it's not just about the technical things that you learned.
Exactly. It's not only about the technical skills. For instance, for my experience, especially in these top universities. I've been to a lot of very top universities, and when you interact with the professors, what makes them stand out to win the Nobel Prize is not just because they are smart. Sometimes they are just very curious to try things that people have never tried before, and it worked. And then it became a whole invention, and they got the Nobel Prize. So they want people that may be very curious to try new things that someone has never tried before. And that might be the spark of innovation. They want people who might think so differently from the general norm, demonstrable example or life examples. So when they see these things, they know that you stand out of the norm and you are likely to be someone who might spark innovation in the future. Do you get it? Yeah. So some of these things tell a lot of stories about you, and they want people who think outside of the box, who are very different. And they just don't want you to come and tell them that I think very differently from everyone. Everyone can say that, but what have you done in life that shows that you are very different? These are some of the things you can highlight on in case you find yourself in such a problem that Charles posed. So yeah, that's what I have to say.
To our audience, if you did a program that you're doing something totally different in terms of national service, it means it's not a dead end. So please be encouraged. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So we have one question here asking that in case you don't get funding from the school, can you use a private funding in terms of like taking loans or maybe using your credit card to kind of fund yourself? What do you have to say, panelists?
Well, I think I have something to say about this. And if you don't get a full funding, so while you're applying for schools, don't just look at only funding that can come from the school, right? Look at other external funding. For instance, I can speak for Stanford and other good schools I know, but for Stanford, if you're a Black student, for instance, we are all like, I can't say we are all Blacks, but at least I'm expecting a huge Black community here. There's something called the Wade Scholarship that gives you full funding for 24 months while you're doing your master's. In Stanford, Wade Scholarship, you can all look into it. But yeah, please, I would encourage you, like, just apply. I know it's difficult to get in. I understand what it takes, but we also went there and you can also do it, right? So try Wade Scholarship. Once you get into Stanford, and you are very likely to get into like these scholarships. So look into external funding. Don't restrict yourself to only funding that comes from the school. That's one thing. Though most of the external funding are for citizens and permanent residents, but there's a very few section of them that are open to like the general public. You would want to try that. And you would also want to talk to the admission officers beforehand to ask them, are there any funding available to international students? That is one thing. When you don't get that, there are other educational funding institutions that you would want to take advantage of. I could list a number of them: asset funding, a whole lot of other funding. Asset funding, I think, will need a cosigner in the US. Some will not need a cosigner in the US. I think there's one other funding that doesn't need a cosigner in the US. That's, as an international student, you can come in without someone who is a citizen of the US co-signing for you. I forget the name of that. Is
that Empower?
Empower loans. Yes, thank you very much. Empower. So Empower is one thing that you can also use. A lot of the Indians that come here, I'm telling you, a lot of the Indians, they come on Empower funding. A lot of the Indians that I have seen who didn't get full funding, they come on Empower. So that is one thing, but you should be mindful of the amount of the loan that you are taking. For instance, I went to Stanford. School fees is $82,000 a year. If you didn't get any funding at all, I wouldn't, unless you have money, which is fine, but I wouldn't really encourage you to put yourself in a debt of like almost $200,000 by the time you graduate school. It's not financially wise. Do you get it? So you should be thinking through very well, asking questions, the proportion of loans you are going to take care of. You should also try and get some external funding and be thinking of, even when you can, be thinking of getting more funding when you come into the school. So take advantage of every kind of funding and scholarship opportunity before you go for the loan. It should come before the loans. All right.
Thank you. Any other panel member wants to add anything to this?
Yeah, so
in terms of the loans and Councils. Yeah, Edwin.
And then I think we should be mindful of you being not fully funded, let's say partially funded, and then you want to fund yourself. You know, so it's actually ways, for instance, your dad wants to now fund you, and then on his bank statement, you know, he's providing an amount of money, or someone is providing an amount of money on the bank statement. So this actually raises questions also when it comes to the visa interview. So this is something that we should be careful about, you know. So I advise that it would be good if we get full funding from the department or the university, because when it comes to partially funded, you know, you have to provide, you know, some kind of a bank statement, or let's say some other source of funding to support the partially funded from the university, which raises questions during the visa interview. So we should try as much as possible to, you know, pray we get full funding from the university, which helps us or limits our, you know, problems when we go to the visa interview. So I think that's something I'd like to touch on. Yeah.
Okay, so I also wanted to add something little. So this is in the case where you're looking everywhere and then the funding is not coming, like you don't have funding at all for the year. I'll say you shouldn't give up. One thing that I always advise people to do is to defer your admission. You get it? Because in my case, after I got the chance to come to the US, I remember that in that year, NCAT, I had admission from there, but I didn't get funding. And they reached out to me the next year that, oh, there's now funding available for you, so if you want to come. So if you get the admission, it's a good opportunity. The funding is not coming, try and then defer and keep your admission. Who knows? It could work in the next year.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think I really share in what the others have spoken about already. And so there are instances where the funding may not come, but I see that this might be more of a personal advice that we are all sharing. Personally, I wouldn't go for a credit loan or credit card as a way of making payment, because when we are thinking about the reality, the issue here is that when we think about just the tuition alone, that's very expensive. You have a huge amount of money to pay for tuition almost every semester, because if you delay in making payment, there's going to be a hold on your account, and so you wouldn't be in a position of registering for the next courses. And at times there are some courses that are mounted just once every year, and so if there's a hold on your account, you don't get the opportunity to register. That also becomes another problem for you. You have to wait for another year before you can register the class. I had a friend who came to the States without funding, and so he decided to work with the dining services, and they will pay him like $500 as the gross. And so for each month after the gross, he was earning something minimum as a net. And so if you are thinking of maybe working in the dining services or any off-campus position, that may not necessarily be graduate assistantship. That comes with tuition waiver. You still have to think about your tuition that you got to pay. Not just the tuition alone, there are other fees that you have to pay. Back in Eastern Illinois University, they were giving like $5,000 as a scholarship for individuals without funding. People accepted that, they came and they were still struggling, because the $5,000 as the scholarship for the entire year, that's not even going to pay half of your tuition for the whole year. And so you put yourself in the pressure and the stress, and at the end of the day, you even struggle to learn, to even get a peace of mind and even the joy to learn. And so as Christabel was saying, if you have tried all avenues and things are not working out, you can also defer. And it's always important that at times you also have to try and then apply to a couple of schools, like maybe 4 or 5 schools, if possible. Yeah, if possible. If you do so, by so doing, there can be the opportunity for you to maybe get at least one with admission and funding. But in the worst case, if you don't get funding, I think the other best decision for me personally would be that you defer for the following year, and then maybe as you defer, you can also try to other schools as well, other than going for loans and others, because the dollars to CD things are skyrocketing. So you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you are done with school and then you are owing like 80,000, 70,000 and others. These days, I learned even when people are dating and even getting married, they think about the loans that you have, because we are planning for the future. What loans do we have? How much are we going to pay for the future? And you don't want to put yourself in a debt situation where always you are being chased after.
So on that same topic, audience, let me just digress a little bit.
Esther,
So yes,
we have about 34 minutes and some seconds. So.
I'm aware, but I just want our panelists to address this issue. So folks back home have this idea that if I don't get funding, I can come to the US and work outside campus and make money and pay my school fees. What do we have to say about that? Because it looks like the disinformation is so much back home and people have ideas about life in the US. So I just want like maybe 1 minute from our panel members to highlight this myth about coming to school in the US quickly.
Can I go?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, you talk.
So this one there, they bore me past. So first of all, the US, I'm sorry if I mix tree and things, but the US and Casa, as you they see, so as we are here, it's not easy, even with funding. Okay, like even if you get funding, doesn't mean that everything is taken care of. See, each and every one of us, we are living within our means. Jai, it's not easy. Okay. And the idea that over here, then you can go out and work because the US has jobs. Maybe you get some job at McDonald's and things. I thought the same, brother and sister. It's not true, because you're coming on a certain type of visa. That type of visa makes it illegal. Yeah, sure, that's the end of your schooling. Forget it. And if you think that's the reason why you want to come to grad school, then please don't even try it. Like, I mean, some people try it out and they get lucky. Media, I won't say go and do some. Some of those people who like to follow rules. So maybe I'm not the one you should listen to, because you hear people say, it's cool, you can do it. It's a lie. I mean, you start and the extra stress you're already going through, like grad school is no joke. Like, I don't know how else to say it. You come and then already being from a Ghanaian school or having a Ghanaian background, educational systems are different. And you have so many requirements that you're already trying to catch up with at the school level. And then you have to add living situation too. Like, it's not true. Please, when you're coming, you are not allowed to work outside your university. Your university is your workplace, first of all, okay? That's the first basic place you can only work in legally. It's allowed. And even that one, you have hours. You can't work 40 hours, 50 hours thinking, say, okay, within the week you do this and in a month you're getting this number of dollars. It doesn't work that way. The Homeland Security has requirements for your visa type because you're coming as an F1 student. If you come as a J1, or that one even has more limitation because not everybody comes on an F1 here. So it depends on the kind of visa you have. That is it's a myth. It's not true. Okay, it's really not true. And I wouldn't say put yourself in that position, because already you're starting illegally. Like, if you start illegally, how many things do you think you'll be able to do right? Like, as the time is going, it's you want to come and do DoorDash and be driving. Do you know how much gas is? Can you buy a car? Like, don't please. I'm so sorry, but like, I have people coming to me and telling me that, and I like you. Yes, I'm not. I can't even say it. Like, I think I'll just
I really
get
understand
because
how you are communicating it. Ivy is really pouring her heart out to you guys, right? Like, I'm going to talk from a more logical point of view. The education in the US is set to be profitable to the US. US makes a lot of money from schooling here. When Trump wanted to cancel the OPT thing, and MIT sued Trump for that, one of their biggest arguments is that it gives the US billions of dollars every year to strengthen the US economy. So first of all, think of it like this. The US makes a lot of money from people who are schooling here in the US from outside. So the system is designed so that no matter the work you work, it's still not going to be so much enough to pay your school fees and cover everything within the 20-hour frame. That is how the system is designed. So for instance, you think you do DoorDash, you work at a pantry or whatever. No matter if you are going to work for 20 hours a week, it's not possible to make enough money to pay your tuition and cover your cost of living and everything. That is how the system is designed. Unless you're going to work like 40 hours a week And I don't know how a graduate student is going to be able to work for 40 hours a week and still be productive in school. Definitely, it's going to reflect on your grades, and your academic supervisor is going to know that there is something wrong. There's almost no way to hide it. When you start working for more than 20 hours a week, it will reflect in your academic records. Your advisor will know that, hey, what is going on with you? You will know that you are always stressed, and then it will come up. And once it comes up, big issues start arising. Here, the repercussions of things are very, very significant. It's not like Ghana that you can just mess up and go anyways. Here, it can lead to termination of your visa. And when your visa is terminated, it's hard to get a visa again to come back to the US. Like, think about all these repercussions. So please, funding is very important. As I was saying, if you don't get good funding and you think going for loan is not good enough for you, I think it is worth to stay for a year, apply to more schools, get a full funding or a better scholarship than next year and come. Or you can defer that admission that you have, tell them that you cannot come this year because of some reasons, and use another extra year to apply for other schools. If you get a better funding than what you got, go in for them. There's nothing wrong with that. I hope you get it. But please don't come here with the mindset that, oh, I'll work and pay the rest. The system is designed so that you cannot work and pay the rest unless you are going to sacrifice your academic performance for that. That is how the system is designed, because it's designed to profit from you.
Thank you, Benjamin. So we have one question here asking about how does your GPA contribute to you getting funding? Can anyone throw light on that?
Well, I'll chime in again. So the document I'll share with you answers this question to a much more detail, right? But I'll share the overall glances to you. When you're applying to schools abroad, it's your overall GPA is important, at least meet the minimum deadline, the minimum cutoff point, at least try and meet it to 3.0, or if it's 3.5, try and get it. But what is even much more important is your grades that are particular to the course you're about to do. So for instance, you did chemical engineering, but for your master's or your PhD, you are going to focus on a particular subsection of chemical engineering for your PhD. They don't really care about the other, maybe extracurriculars or other parts of chemical engineering you did. Maybe for that particular chemical engineering thing, you are like the bossy in that. You are always getting A's. You have a lot of experience with respect to that. That is what is very important to them. So aside just focusing on, oh, my GPA is not good, focus on like, all right, my GPA is not good, but which classes, is there a trend or a career path that I was really doing well all throughout my undergrad? Tailor your application to highlight that, and that will give you a big advantage. Many people would think that, oh, when I meet some Ghanaians and I told them, oh, I'm at Stanford, people think, oh, then you graduated 4.0 GPA. I didn't graduate 4.0 GPA, no. But I knew how to highlight on some important things. Some courses I got A, and by means of that, I got into Stanford, right? So you should highlight on the things that really you did well or that matters to you and get in. That's it. Don't focus on everything. Focus on the most important things. That's what faculty is important to faculty.
Okay, so in addition to what Mr. Amu said, I think the GPA is one of the requirements for getting admission. A lot of things comes into play. So the GPA is one. The GRE is another thing. Your recommendation is another thing. And then we can talk about the SOP. So Mr. Amu talking about you highlighting on specific courses that you did well. You know, you can place much emphasis on them when it comes to your SOP. You know, emphasizing on them that because of this and that, you know, maybe like, you know, you appreciate these courses and that one, like it just towards what you want to be in the future. And then, you know, you kind of love those courses so much. So you have to kind of create some kind of reasons to back your, you know, the grades you had in specific courses, you know, to support your GPA in all. So the GPA is not the only requirement for getting admission. So the GRE is another thing, and then you can score you can have a very good GRE score, and then you can back it up with that, making a point that, you know, maybe probably during your school time you had specific issues that didn't help you to do very well, but then it's evident from your GRE score that, you know, you are very good and all that. So the GPA is one thing, GRE is one thing, recommendation, SOP, they all comes into play, to give you the funding admission. So that's what I would like to touch on. Yeah.
Yeah, and a little bit on that, if there is a problem with your GPA, don't leave it unanswered. And they are thinking people, they would want to understand why were you having a very low GPA. For instance, when I started undergrad, like I was part of those people who wanted to go to medical school, and for the first 1 year of my undergrad, like I was just messed up. So I was second class upper when I was in first year, but I was able to build my GPA to 75 from 68. So in my SOP, I wrote that this happened, and for which reason my GPA in first year was very low. But when I gained consciousness that this is what I'm going to do for my life, I sat up and I did well. So don't leave some of these loopholes unanswered. The SOP is the best way to explain some loopholes, some questions with respect to your application. Don't wait to be asked. You might never get the opportunity to answer it. Answer it in your SOP. Maybe I was having health challenges. That is why in this semester this happened. But don't make it like the whole SOP is like you are giving excuses. No, but at least answer some questions, but don't go and give excuses in your SOP, but don't leave some questions unanswered.
Thank you so much, panelists.
Esther, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Can I just quickly talk to
Yeah.
GRE? So with the question about writing GRE and GRE requirements, I believe that is a field requirement. It depends on your field. Okay. For example, for me, when I was coming, I didn't need to write a GRE for my master's when I was applying from Ghana. It wasn't a requirement. And it also depends on the school, because I had mates, right? We were in the same program. The other school that they applied to, it was a requirement from the admission department of the whole school. Okay, the department itself, the Hispanic department itself of that school was not requiring GRE, but later they had to send them an email saying that, okay, the admissions department is saying that this is something that is broad for the whole school, so please, you have to write GRE. But more or less from our department, you've got admission. Okay, so they told them that they just need to pass a certain grade just to kind of check off that admission from the admissions department for the whole school. So GRE is specific to schools and how they kind of go around the admission. So it depends on your field. For me, I didn't have to stress about GRE, which I'm grateful for. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you so much. We have another question here that says that, can I change my program when I get into the US? So maybe I came with a different program, and then when I got here, I want to switch to a different program. Is that possible?
Yeah, so what I would want to say is that that's possible, but it takes a longer time to go through that process. And two, that is not advisable, because about 95 to, let me say, about 99% of the funding or graduate assistantship are tied to the various departments or the colleges. And so if you apply to a particular program, let's say maybe education, and now you are deciding to switch to history, which might be in a different department or a different program, most of the department, they will tell you that you can't maintain your fellowship, you can't maintain your assistantship. And so if you came with a particular department, but now you are switching to a different department, they can work on things for you. At times, it might take a longer time for you to complete the entire process and the program. But when it comes to your funding, then it becomes also another major issue, because you can't be in the maybe the computer science department or geography department as a student and then be working as a graduate assistantship or graduate researcher in a different department. Most of the institutions wouldn't allow that. And we are here because of admission, and we are also here because of funding. So that's something that you got to also think about.
All right. So
Yeah. Okay.
Our audience is asking if this program is just for PhD and masters. The answer is yes. This webinar was tailored for students in Ghana who wants to pursue graduate school studies. So that is the answer to your question. There is another question here that says that I think Ivy did touch on that the program's requirement doesn't require GRE, but there is another source of information coming from a friend saying that you need GRA at all costs. So what should that person do?
Like, so the thing is, in the US is a very diverse community, right? Every school, every department is different. Please don't follow just your friend. The thing is, the GRE that you're going to write, you maybe me, I did very well. I got 333 on the GRE, and I'm sure it helped me also a lot. But you don't know whether you're going to pass or not, unless you are very confident of yourself. But if the school says GRE is not required, don't worry yourself. Don't apply with it. If they say it is not required, but it is recommended, then you would want to consider it, because if someone applies with a very good GRE score, they are going to, and they have to decide between the two of you, and you are all equal with your SOP recommendations and everything, and the person has the GRE score, which is good, they are going to give the person a thumbs up for that, because the person went an extra mile. So you should look at the school and particularly the department's their recommendations, whether they want the GRE or they think it's recommended or they require it. These three things. They'll tell you that they don't want it at all. They will tell you that they don't want it, but it is recommended, or they accept it, or they need it. So please don't just follow your friend. One strategy I can give to those who have low GPAs that can help is that, which I have done it for some people who had second class lower, and when they did it, they got full funding into the US, got admission and full funding in the US, where there are even other counterparts who got second class upper, they didn't get the same thing was. If you know your GPA is not good, there's something called worst evaluation. And what I've observed over the years is that worst evaluation actually scales up your GPA by, sometimes it can scale it up to 0.5 if you don't know. So, and it's expensive. I'll be truthful with you, it's over $200. I don't remember the exact figures, but worst evaluation can help you scale up your GPA if you think your GPA is not really good. Do a worst evaluation. What are the advantages? It's a worldwide service. They are going to even trust that more than your transcript itself. And if you have a better GPA on worst evaluation than your transcripts, they are going to trust the GPA from your worst evaluation. And then it beefs $323. Thank you very much, Nicholas. So as you can see, it's a big money now. I think it's about $3,000, 3,000 Ghana cedis, sorry. So it's big money. But if your GPA is really low, like you are in lower, and you really think you want to boost up your GPA, please, I would recommend that. I've used it for some people who had lower and it worked. They really got in, so.
All right, thank you so much. So we have about just about 5 minutes to wrap up, or 5 to like 10 minutes. So was it Sandra who wanted to talk?
Yeah, I was the one, a very quick one.
Yes, go
yeah,
ahead.
So just as the rest said, I'll say that sometimes you see your departmental requirements might be a little different. So do well to check both. Just as you're checking the requirements from like your general school, you should also like come down to your department and also check their requirements. Yeah, so that's what I'd like to add.
Okay, so our next question is that, do you have to initially include your resume and SOP as attachment when emailing a professor?
Sandra.
Okay, Edwin.
So sorry.
No problem.
What I wanted to talk earlier about you emailing a professor and then, writing your story and everything. I think it's expedient for you to attach your files, like, please find attach my CV, maybe my GRE score, and then maybe my certificate or something like that for a producer. Like, attach something that will give them an evidence that, okay, what you are saying is true. All right, so that is, I actually wanted to talk about that. And then back to that, I think the panelists mentioned about you sending email to several professors. You have to be careful when you are doing that, because you might probably, maybe you're like, dear Dr. So and so. You might end up sending the same name to a different professor. Do you get what I'm trying to say? You have to be very careful of that. And I've had a professor in my department telling me something that everybody to admit, telling me that someone did that. this person was emailing him to, ask about what goes into on a department, what to do. And then this person ended up mentioning a professor's name from a different department, like from a different university. You see, so that's a big problem. You have to be careful about that when you are sending the emails across, and then make sure to attach the files. I think it's very important to do that. And then one more thing, since our time is fast spent, about the situation in Ghana right now about this dollar and everything. And then we were thinking about how to pay for the admission fees. I think there are some universities that kind of waive the admission, like the admission application fee. They give admission waiver, application waiver. And you can maybe contact the graduate coordinator in your department or even the graduate college, in a nice way to ask for admission waiver, and they can provide you that. But we shouldn't do it too much and then try to play like you are begging. We should try to ask in a nice way if maybe they give admission waiver for a particular program or something like that. So that is what I want to touch on, to wrap this up. Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other comment from our time is fast spent, so yeah. We may not be able to answer all the questions here in the chat, but panelists, you can go ahead and respond to some of the questions that you think you can address. So,
I think attaching your CV is also very helpful, because there was one time my professor wanted me to check a student who had applied to him, and I think he was really interested in the CV. And then I'll also say that if you have any publication, any work, they are so happy when they see that. So you should also attach that to your email. Thank you.
And it kind of really works if your professor can at least link you up to, maybe for instance, your professor schooled in maybe Illinois State University and did very well there. He might still have very good contact with his professors over there. So if you can maybe speak to some of your professors and they can reference you that, oh, I have this very good research student here that I think might really help your research. That is a green light for you for your application. Once the professor in the Illinois State, I'm using it as an example, Illinois State University responds that, oh, wow, it's almost a done deal for you. You just have to do a very good work. So leverage on your connections is very important. And also, please don't attach your SOP. They won't have time to read it. Yes, CV is fine. CV should be one page. You should make sure that you are using metrics in your CV. You made this better by 50%, 55%. Use metrics in your CV is very important. Don't go and restate your CV in your SOP. That is a whole, that even spoils the game for you. Don't just go and restate everything you have said in your CV, in your SOPs. Your SOP is an expanded form of your CV. Try and make it more diversified as a person, right? You have so much experiences. Reflect on yourself. Build a story that really reflects you. And I'm thinking it's going to work for you. So yeah, don't use your SOP. Make sure that you are brief. They don't have a lot of time. When they open your email, they are going to have maybe 1 minute to read and then think whether they are going to reply or not. Or sometimes they won't even open it at all. So be brief. Don't attach too many files, the most important things, and then just go.
All right, so thank you so much, our distinguished panel members. The last question I want us to address is, how do you convert CWA to GPA, especially those who went to tech? We use a different system than the normal GPA. So how do you do the conversion in your application? Just a quick overview.
I think what I've held people with is, so the same words has a free tool. The only thing is, as of the last time, if I remember correctly, it was for, it didn't have Ghana as part of their select nations, but the closest one was Nigeria. So you can at least use Nigeria as an approximation for converting your CWA to GPA. But where's.org, I'll put the link in the chat. They have a free tool for you to use so that you can convert it. I think you just have to set the location to Nigeria and then you use that. But apart from that, if other people in the panel also knows other resources, great, bring it up.
I can't think of a name, but I think when you just Google, there are so many other online tools that are free that you can use to convert. And also, I think, I mean, I don't know the other schools that use CWA, but I remember Tech in Tech we're using CWA, right? So you can so we know, I mean, I don't know if it's still the same, but it was 70 was A. And you check like the schools, I think A should be 4 for most schools, right? So you can just check and do like, it's arithmetic math. You can just do like the calculation and you should be able to convert it if you don't find the online tool. But if you just Google, there are so many online tools that are free that you can use. Just make sure it's using like the required. So it's not, I mean, some people have from, I think 1 to 4.1 to 5, and some schools do 1 to 4. So make sure you are using like the correct conversion. That's it. But there are so many online tools that can do that for free.
Okay. Any other response from our panelists? All right. It has been a very insightful discussion today, and we want to thank all our panelists. At this point, I'll call on Ben Yusuf to give us some update on upcoming events, and we'll take it from there. So Ben, take the floor.
Thanks so much, Esther. In line with ceremonial protocols and our cherished Ghanaian practices, it's a great pleasure for me to, let's say, a thank you to everyone here. Good afternoon and good evening to brothers and sisters back in Ghana. Please indulge me for only 3 minutes, maximum 5 minutes, to say the thank you. So first of all, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists. Thank you for taking time off your busy schedules. We all know how it works here in the United States. And also like trying to be honest and truthful to us in your responses and share your experiences with us. We really appreciate that. Let me say thank you to Esther for moderating this event. Thank you for making sure that we've been able to work within time. And to all executives of GRASAG-USA, thanks so much for making sure that this event is reality. And to our distinguished guests and audience here, thanks so much for making time to be with us this afternoon. It's our prayer and hope that you join us very soon. We hope for you to join us not only in the United States, but to also participate actively in GRASAG, maybe in upcoming years. We hope and we pray that that comes to fruition. Finally, we thank the Almighty God for making this a success for us. Before I drop off, I would like to just convey an announcement from GRASAG-USA to everyone here. So GRASAG-USA, for those who have heard this for the first time, is the largest Ghanaian student organization in the United States here, and specifically for graduate students. And our mission is to serve as a resourceful community for Ghanaian graduate students, providing resources in terms of academic and professional development. And our priority is to connect Ghanaian students so we can strive for our common goal. So that's basically what we do as GRASAG-USA. We do have a series of events coming up, maybe in subsequent months. For now, I will not be able to give you specific days because we will need to put in 1 or 2 things together before we settle on dates. So I do encourage you to visit our social media platforms. I have dropped in the chats our Facebook platforms, LinkedIn, YouTube, and like all our social, once you just Google GRASAG-USA, you're gonna get that. You can also check the chat to see how maybe it appears on various social media platforms. I do encourage you to visit our website at GRASAG grasag.com. Once you just Google, you'll get us there. We have a lot of updates there that we'll be doing. I also want to inform you that this video is recorded and will be shared with you on our YouTube channel, and the link will be posted on all social media platforms. Finally, and most importantly to our prospective applicants, GRASAG has a student application fee scholarship that is currently enrolled out. I encourage all of you to apply and take advantage of this opportunity. We are providing at least, we are reimbursing every successful applicant like $100. So we give out $100 to, we are targeting like 100 maximum applicants for this scholarship. And so we have shared the flyer on our various social media platforms. I'm going to do that right now again. Just for you to know that, I mean, we care for you, but you must, let me also mention that you must submit your application and pay your application fee before you are able to apply for this. Esther, can you help me drop that? I think I have a bit difficulty in finding that flyer. But if you visit our social media platforms, it's there on Facebook, on LinkedIn, like just go there, grab or see the flyer, put in your application, and you are good to go. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. We hope to see you in our next webinar series in the next couple of weeks. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.